Picture the biggest cruise ship on Earth. 20 decks tall, longer than 3 football fields. Somewhere on board, over 9,000 people are eating 5 meals a day, drinking cocktails by the pool, and doing the one thing every single human body has to do eventually. Now do the math. 9,000 people, multiple bathroom trips a day, 7 days at sea, hundreds of miles from the nearest sewer. So where does it all go? Most people assume they already know the answer. It just goes into the ocean, right? You flush, and somewhere below the waterline, a pipe dumps it straight into the sea. That's the story everyone tells. And it's wrong. What actually happens to that waste is one of the most sophisticated engineering operations on the entire ship, and almost none of the passengers walking those decks have any idea it's happening beneath their feet. There are 3 stages to this story. The first is the flush itself, and it doesn't work the way you think. The second is a hidden factory in the belly of the ship. And the third is a twist that ends with something coming out of that ship cleaner than the water in some American cities. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll never flush a toilet the same way again. Let's start with the flush, because the moment you press that button on a cruise ship, something violent happens. At home, your toilet works on gravity. You've got a tank of water sitting above the bowl, and when you flush, roughly 1.5 gallons of water pours down and pushes everything along. Simple, slow, and completely useless on a ship. Because a cruise ship can't afford to waste gallons of fresh water on every single flush, and it can't rely on gravity to move waste horizontally across a vessel the length of a skyscraper laid on its side. So cruise ships don't use gravity. They use vacuum. Behind every toilet on that ship is a network of sealed pipes held under intense negative pressure, like the tube system at a bank drive-through, except vastly more powerful. When you flush, a valve snaps open for a fraction of a second, and the vacuum yanks everything down the pipe at speeds that can hit 60 miles per hour. That's the reason cruise ship toilets make that loud, startling thunk. That sound is the vacuum doing its job. And here's the part that surprises everyone. A vacuum flush uses about 1/2 liter of water, roughly a pint. Compare that to the gallon and a half your home toilet burns through every time. The ship is moving human waste across hundreds of feet of piping using barely a cup of water, because the air pressure is doing the heavy lifting, not the water. On Carnival's largest ships, that vacuum network can move around 1,500 gallons of waste per minute. It has to, because right after breakfast and right after dinner, thousands of people hit the bathrooms at nearly the same time, and the system can't afford to fall behind for even a second. But the vacuum is just the delivery system. It's not the answer to our question. Because now all of that waste is racing through the pipes toward a single destination deep below the waterline. And what's waiting down there is where the real story begins. Below the passenger decks, in a part of the ship no guest will ever see, sits what is essentially a full-scale sewage treatment plant. The same kind of facility a small town would have, except this one floats, sails through storms, and has to keep running perfectly with thousands of people depending on it. Engineers call it an advanced wastewater treatment system, and it processes 2 completely different kinds of waste. The first is black water. That's the sewage, the stuff from the toilets and medical facilities. The second is gray water, which is everything else. The water from sinks, showers, laundry rooms, and the giant kitchens. And here's a fact almost nobody knows. Gray water is produced in staggering amounts. A large cruise ship can generate up to 1 million gallons of gray water a week, dwarfing the amount of actual sewage. And it's not as harmless as it sounds. Gray water can carry grease, detergents, food waste, and bacteria levels that sometimes rival raw sewage. So both streams get pulled into the treatment plant, and the process runs in stages. First, screening. The waste passes through screens and a device called a screen press that physically strains out everything solid that shouldn't be there. Toilet paper, plastics, wipes, grit. All of it gets separated, ground down, and set aside. Only the liquid moves forward. Next comes the part that makes the whole thing work, and it isn't a chemical or a machine. It's alive. The liquid flows into a bioreactor, a massive tank swarming with billions of bacteria. These microscopic workers do exactly what bacteria do in nature. They devour the organic waste, breaking it down and consuming it as food. Air is constantly pumped through the tank to keep those bacteria thriving. It's the same biological process that happens in a city sewage plant, just compressed into a machine on a moving ship. Then, the water hits the membranes. These are ultra-fine filters with pores measured in nanometers, so small that bacteria and suspended solids physically cannot pass through. The water is forced across them, leaving the contaminants behind. And finally, the water is blasted with ultraviolet light, which destroys any remaining pathogens. No chlorine dumped into the sea, just light. By the time the water reaches the end of this process, it is startlingly clear. And that separated sludge, the solid material left over from the whole operation, that doesn't just vanish. It is either burned in onboard incinerators or stored and offloaded to facilities on land when the ship reaches port. Nothing solid goes into the ocean. So the waste is treated. But there is still one question hanging over all of this. When does the ship actually release the treated water, and is it even allowed to? This is where the twist comes in. There is an international law that governs this, and it is called MARPOL. It sets hard rules for when a ship can discharge anything at all. If the ship only has basic treatment, it has to be at least 12 nautical miles from the nearest land before it can release. But if the ship is running a proper approved treatment plant, and nearly every modern cruise ship is, it can discharge treated water more than 3 nautical miles from shore, but only while the ship is actually moving at 4 knots or faster. That movement matters. It disperses the discharge instead of concentrating it in one spot. That's why, back in 2020, cruise ships couldn't simply be parked and switched off. They still had to sail out to sea to manage their wastewater. A stationary ship is a ship that can't legally release anything. Now here's the number that stops people cold. That fully treated water coming out of the best cruise ship systems is often cleaner than the water flowing out of many municipal treatment plants on land. State environmental testers in Alaska, one of the strictest regions in the world for this, concluded that the effluent from these cruise ship systems was of far better quality than most land-based plants. Read that again. In some cases, the treated water leaving the ship is cleaner than what your own city pours back into its rivers. But I'm not going to pretend the industry is spotless, because the honest part of this story is that it hasn't always played by the rules. Cruise lines have been caught. Royal Caribbean paid an $18 million fine in 1999 for illegal dumping and falsifying records. Carnival's companies paid over $40 million in fines between 2016 and 2019 for similar violations, including deliberately routing waste around the systems and lying about it. And gray water, that 1 million gallons a week, is still far less regulated than sewage in most of the world. So the technology is remarkable. The enforcement is the part that's still catching up. So the next time you're standing on the deck of a cruise ship, watching the ocean roll by, remember what's happening 20 decks below you. An entire hidden factory running around the clock, powered by vacuum and bacteria and ultraviolet light, quietly turning the waste of 9,000 people into water clear enough to make a city jealous. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been on a cruise, and did you have any idea this was happening under your feet? And what's the strangest hidden system you've ever learned about? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. If you learned something today, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and I'll see you on the next one.